This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Nancy Pelosi going full Malcolm X over the weekend. MSNBC defending her positioning herself to be Speaker with the Democrats to take the House and saying Democrats in Congress, she's focused on the House, but just in general, Democrats win by any means necessary.
I have not asked one person for a vote. I haven't asked a candidate or an incumbent for a vote. What's important, and I know better than anybody how important it is for us to win this election, because I see up close and personal what the Republicans and this president are doing. I do not think our opponents should select the leaders of our party. The Republicans are spending millions, tens of millions of dollars against me because they're afraid of me, because I outraise them in the political arena, because I outsmart them at the negotiating table, and because I'm a woman who is going to be a seat at that table. And that, for me, is very important. If Hillary Clinton had won and sat at the head of that table, it'd be different. But I'm not yielding. I'm not yielding that. Now, I do believe that none of us is indispensable, but I think I'm the best person for the job, and I won't let the Republican ads, which are just flooding these districts. And I say to the candidates, do whatever you have to do. Just win, baby.
Oh. Just win, baby. Okay, that's your great grandma going. That's creepy.
That's sort of a combination of Malcolm X and Al Davis that only Nancy Pelosi can pull off.
Just win for me.
Yeah, she persisted, Amy. Look, we're intimidated by Nancy Pelosi's intellect and how she kills us at the negotiating table. Okay. For more on the political landscape, we're pleased to be joined by one of the Republican challengers who is best positioned for a pickup. He is Mike Braun, the Republican nominee for Senate in our neighbor to the east, Indiana. Mike, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, good to be on.
So the state of play in your race against incumbent Joe Donnelly, given Nancy Pelosi's message to win by any means necessary, one of the necessary means, apparently, with Donnelly, is to start adopting a lot more Republican positions. I noticed he did a full reversal on border funding, for example.
He's not only doing that. I think he's kind of a political chameleon, but in the campaign that's been run against me, basically Chuck Schumer's been running his race for him and hitting us with a barrage of negative stuff that's not sticking, because, first of all, everything I've done in building a business over the years, we're proud of it, and we've done so many good things that pay the highest starting wage in our area, frozen health care costs for 9 years now, and really a good place to work, and that's not going to cut it, but that's the approach he'll take. And when it comes to trying to use these current issues and all of a sudden start changing your position on it or calculating your vote, that's the playbook too. It'll be easy for me to litigate that, because I think his voting record has been 77% of the time lined up with Bernie Sanders, and it is 84% of the time with Chuck Schumer, and nearly 99% with the Obama agenda. So he's in a tough spot when it comes to that issue. Brett Kavanaugh, Hoosiers are now seeing him for what he is, and that's kind of a puppet or stooge for Chuck Schumer, and that's going to be fleshed out from now through November 6th in a way that there'll be no confusion about where Joe Donnelly gets his marching orders.
Now, as your quest for Indiana's U.S. Senate seat, are you positioning yourself with President Trump or neutral, or is he going to be campaigning with you, or has he already campaigned with you?
Well, that's interesting. So for everybody that's listening, there are 8 or 9 seats across the country that are in play. And the top 3 most likely would be Florida, Indiana, and North Dakota. And just a couple weeks ago, we were elevated to the number 1 likelihood simply because we're a conservative state that, all things being equal, with the Republican tradition we have here, we should win it. Every seat is being challenged because the Democrats are ahead and have had 6 years to prepare for it on fundraising. Florida will have its own independence due to Rick Scott. We here are doing the best of probably any of the other seats. And President Trump, I spoke to the vice president, I think it was 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. They have declared this the number one seat, that they're going to help get across the finish line. And his agenda on tax reform, his agenda on putting America first and doing the things that he has so much trouble getting to the finish line, even getting heard due to Democrats being trying to frustrate the effort from the day he was elected. It's still resonating in Indiana as much as when he ran back in 2016, if not more so. So his agenda, Hoosiers like, because it is embodying all the things that are great about this country, not looking to more federal government that Democrats keep wanting to dish out when it's given us a disaster that we've got currently. So Trump agenda is popular here in Indiana, even as he works through some of the difficult issues when it comes to trying to get the Chinese to behave as most other trading partners do across the country. People are with him and behind him because they know business as usual. What the Democrats are trying to sell is what's put us in this pickle over the last 2 to 3 decades.
You mentioned, Kavanaugh, whose confirmation hearing has been set for September 4th, expected to take 3 or 4 days. It seems, at least at present, that Republicans are going to hold together on this. Some of the concerns about Rand Paul or Susan Collins seem to have abated. And that means that some Dems in trouble, like your opponent there, Joe Donnelly, may get a free vote to confirm and get a free pass from their overlords like Chuck Schumer. Where are you on Kavanaugh, and where is Donnelly at present on Kavanaugh?
Well, of course, Donnelly's dancing around. He doesn't want to lose any of his base by rushing into it, but I think it's a foregone conclusion, and we've been after him since Brett Kavanaugh was put out there as a nominee to vote for him, get a hearing, or get an interview with him, and he's going to do that until he's sure every Republican, I think, is across the finish line. And yes, he and Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Manchin, and I even believe it'll be a few others, since these midterms are so important, that will end up voting for him. And it's going to be a political maneuver that I know all Hoosiers already know what it's about. And of course, when I'm the next senator, when we get nominees like Brett Kavanaugh, it's full-throated support from the beginning because he reflects the values of Hoosiers. Joe Donnelly is going to be in trouble on this one either way. Let's say a Republican would squirm and you'd need a Democratic vote. I doubt any one of them comes across the line then. If they did, they'd get killed by their base, and it would still look political on the part of trying to attract some moderate Republicans or independents. So he is, I think, in a classic catch-22, and it's because his values do not reflect those of Hoosiers. His values reflect, that of Chuck Schumer and the liberal end of his party.
You mentioned the Trump agenda is still popular in Indiana, and that seems clear from your website. Indiana wants to drain the swamp, so that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. But let me ask you this. You had a bruising primary against 2 incumbent congressmen who you defeated. And I just wonder how the Trump agenda, how your victory against 2 incumbent members of Congress has changed or reflects changes going on in sort of Indiana conservative and Republican circles.
Well, that was a race of really all of us were good conservatives. The clear difference there would have been the trajectory or background from where I came from. And I think without having to state it, there would be similarities to that of Trump. And I'm obviously going to be my own person. I've got a different approach, a different style, but it reflects frustration with business as usual. Most conservative states, especially Indiana, went so overwhelmingly for Trump because they made the simple calculation. Why would we keep sending folks that have been part of the system there? And Joe Donnelly reflects that. My primary opponents were good people that had great points of view. But in this country, if we're going to switch from where we've been, let's start sending some people that have done something, that have accomplished something in life. And the sad thing is, then the Democrats trot out this, to where they character assassinate and try to devalue everything America's about, and that's liberty, accomplishing things. When I get elected, and you get Rick Scott in there and Mitt Romney from Utah, we'll literally double the business caucus in the Senate. That shows you how few people we have there that have actually done something, solved problems, been out there in the trenches of conservatism, I've always said. I think Trump started, I believe, what's going to be an era of where successful people will stick their neck out, go through all the hullabaloo that you have to get, there, have your, record, drugged through the mud.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work. People know that's the old, play book, and they're fed up with it. Trump personified that in 2016, and that's what's driving me here in 2018.
Mr. Braun, over the weekend, the Indiana National Guard was back in Gary, Indiana, helping demolish abandoned buildings. This time they took down a 3-story apartment. I know you're not the governor in charge of the National Guard, but as a U.S. Senator representing Indiana, what could you do to bring jobs and help people in towns such as Gary?
Well, I'll tell you how that's going to work, because for 37 years, I started a real small business. We hovered at 15 employees for 17 of those years. In 98, we grew from 15 to 300 in 2008. In 2008, the darkest hour in our economy since the Great Depression, we lived within our means. We did all the things that gets laughed at by Washington politicians, including some on our own side. We grew from 300 to 900 today. When you know how to do that kind of thing, it's going to be built into your everyday playbook of what to do. And the good thing about Indiana is, the national unemployment level is under 4%. In Indiana, it's close to 3%. In my hometown and county, it's under 2% probably, if you really look at some of the particular areas within the county. That is, I'm not going to need to be briefed on it. I've done it my entire career, and it's about taking ideas, driving it through the private sector, and we as conservatives, and I told Vice President Pence this when he came in for a fundraiser shortly after the primary, we've got the golden opportunity, share the benefits with your employees. Now that we're not sending as much money to D.C., make sure that people start looking to the real world to solve their problems. And I think in my own company, everyone's benefited from lower withholding because they're paying less taxes. We have piled on with lower health care costs, lowered family costs by $1,400 a year, raised 401k benefits, and my son, even without asking me, did the first mid-year bonus in company history because of tax reform. That is the way we win it, by showing how it's done through the real world. The conservatives got a great opportunity, not only with tax reform, but the Trump agenda in general.
Now, I know you've got a lot of legislative priorities when you get to the Senate, but if you would consider just one request from your neighbors to the west there, and that would be to introduce legislation to dissolve Illinois and allow it to be divided evenly among Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, and Wisconsin. We'd certainly appreciate that if you take that under advisement.
Well, the only thing that wouldn't be liked by that is Wisconsin would probably get, the metro area. And in general, though, Governor Holcomb talks about it all the time. The welcome sign is out. I've was there 3 years. Thank goodness. I was born in Indiana, and we've got a state government that most others would love to have because we stick to basic principles. We have cash balances. We don't look to government first to solve anything. We look to local governments, our school boards, and our communities. We have a context here of enterprise and low regulation, and we're probably the envy of every state government in the country. So all of that gives me that background to take not only to the political marketplace here to win this election, but when I get to D.C., I'll be one of the few senators that can actually talk about how you lower health care costs. I've done it for 9 years by taking on the health insurance companies with no help other than I was frustrated with business as usual. My stage of the game, I'm going there to focus on things like health care, infrastructure, get enterprise out there to where it's controlling the dynamic of this country, not Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, through the federal government.
He is Mike Braun for Indiana, MikeBraunForIndiana.com. I wish it was Mike Braun for Illinois, but it's Indiana. Republican candidate for U.S. Senate taking on Joe Donnelly, one of the Republican Party's best pickup opportunities this cycle. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you very much. Let's do it again soon before the election, and I'll keep you up to date.
Very
Thanks
good.
Again.
Thank you.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.